Hey guys, McScary Squid here. I hate to do this and interrupt the stories, but I just wanted to take a few seconds to ask you for your help. I'm currently just 3 subscribers away from 100. That number has been a dream and a goal since I started the channel, so if you could help me hit that mark, I would be forever grateful. Okay, I won't take up any more time. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy tonight's stories. I promise, they're out of this world.
Okay. Hey, Bob, I'm looking at what Jack was talking about, and it's definitely not a particle that's nearby, because there is another one I can look at and get a three-dimensional comparison with. It is a bright object, and it's obviously rotating because it's flashing. It's way out in the distance, as I say, because there are particles that are close by, and it's obviously not one of those. It's apparently rotating in a very rhythmic fashion because the flashes come around almost on time. And it's, as we look back at the Earth, it's up at about 11 o'clock, about, maybe 10 or 12 Earth diameters. I don't know whether that does you any good, but there's something out there.
Right, we don't doubt it, Gene, and we might work up a set of...
The audio recording you just heard was the voice of Gene Cernan, astronaut, American hero, last man on the moon, and my personal idol. The reason I wanted to become an astronaut. Experts say that clip is Gene reporting a rocket pod floating away during the Apollo 17 mission. But experts can lie. I learned that before I ever got close to space. I joined the Air Force in the late 90s with one goal in mind. Not glory, not medals, not even jets, really. NASA. I wanted the patch. I wanted the suit. I wanted to look down at the Earth the way Cernan had, and know, for one impossible moment, that I had stepped outside the world everybody else was trapped inside. I made it through pilot training. I flew everything they would let me touch. In the early 2000s, I was flying Top Gun missions, pushing aircraft so hard the seams groaned and the sky turned black at the edges of my vision. I was good. Not the best, but good enough to keep moving upward. Then NASA opened applications for the astronaut program. I applied, and God help me, I got in. They call you an ASCAN at first, astronaut candidate. It sounds almost cute, like summer camp with pressure suits, but it is not cute. It is the most expensive, elaborate way mankind has ever invented to find out what you are really afraid of. The swimming drills were brutal. The survival exercises were worse. The classroom hours were endless. Russian language in the morning, orbital mechanics after lunch, robotics until your eyes crossed. Then came the centrifuge, where they spun us until the blood tried to leave our heads and hide in our boots. But it was all doable. Hard, yes. Humbling, absolutely. But doable. Then came the flights. You know the ones. A high-performance jet takes you up toward the very edge of the Earth, high enough that the blue drains out of the sky and the curve of the planet becomes visible beneath you. Then the aircraft dives, and for a few seconds gravity lets go. The old nickname is the Vomit Comet. Though we weren't in the lumbering tourist version, ours was sleeker, meaner, built for men and women who were supposed to keep their breakfast and their dignity. I remember the day clearly because I had been annoyed by how beautiful it was. The sky was spotless. The earth below looked painted. We were strapped in, shoulder to shoulder, trying to look calm while our stomachs prepared to betray us. The pilot was an Air Force major named Harlan. Senior trainer was a woman named Dr. Meade, former Navy, sharp as broken glass. At altitude, Harlan's voice came over the comms. "Dr. Meade, I have a visual. Meade leaned forward. Say again? Off starboard. High. Maybe half a mile out. At first, none of us understood the tone in his voice. Pilots report things. Weather. Traffic. Debris. They do not sound afraid. We all turned as much as our restraints allowed. And there it was. Hanging above the world, just beyond us, was a large black object orbiting the Earth. I say object because I do not have another word. It was not a satellite. It was too close, too still, too deliberate. It had sharp edges, wrong angles, surfaces like black glass and chrome. No markings, no solar panels, no flame. No movement except a slow, patient rotation. It looked ancient. That was my first thought, and I have hated myself for it ever since. Not advanced, not alien, ancient. Dr. Meade went white. Not pale, white. She grabbed the comm. Command, this is Training Flight 7. We have visual contact with... She stopped. The object had begun to vibrate. I could not hear it through the aircraft. Not exactly, but I felt it in my teeth. The edges blurred. The black surfaces flexed like something breathing beneath metal skin. Then a green pulse shot out of it. Not a beam, a pulse. It expanded through the sky in a perfect ring and engulfed the jet. The aircraft slammed sideways, like it had hit an invisible ocean. Every alarm screamed at once. My harness cut into my shoulders. Someone vomited. Someone prayed. The windows flooded green so brightly that I could see the veins inside my eyelids when I shut my eyes. For 3 seconds, there was no gravity, no sound, no self. I saw things in that green light. Not images, exactly. Impressions. Tall figures without faces, standing in a place that was not a room, watching us from behind the dark. A sound like fingernails dragging across radio static. A feeling of being noticed by something that had not known we were there before. Then the light vanished. Harlan got us down. I still do not know how. When we landed, NASA leadership was waiting on the tarmac. Not medics, not engineers. Leadership. They took us straight to debriefing. No showers, no phone calls, no jokes about who had puked. We were separated, interviewed, re-interviewed, then put together in a windowless room with 2 men I had never seen before. They wore suits, not uniforms. The papers came next. Secrecy agreements, national security language, prison time, loss of clearance, loss of pension, loss of everything. Then Dr. Meade, who had seen what we saw, stood at the front of the room and told us we had experienced a classified equipment malfunction involving an experimental defense platform. No one believed her. No one argued. The next morning, we were informed that we could no longer participate in the astronaut program. Medical reasons. That was the phrase. Medical reasons. They sent me home with a handshake, a packet of documents, and the dead-eyed sympathy of people who knew exactly what they were doing. About a week later, the nightmares started. At first, they were ordinary enough. Falling, suffocating, being trapped in a cockpit while the sky turned green. Then they changed. I began dreaming of faceless beings standing at the foot of my bed. Long bodies, smooth heads, no mouths, no eyes, yet I knew they were looking at me. Sometimes there were 3, sometimes 7. Once there were so many that my bedroom seemed full of them, shoulder to shoulder, silent as mourners. I woke with nosebleeds. My wife left after 6 months. I do not blame her. I had become a man who unplugged televisions before sleeping, a man who tore radios out of cars, a man who could not sit near a baby monitor, because beneath the soft hiss of static, I could hear whispering. Not words, almost words. The worst part is that sometimes I understood them anyway. A name. Coordinates. A sound like my mother crying, though she had been dead for 10 years. Once, very clearly, Gene Cernan's voice saying, "They were already here." I tried to contact the others. Most would not speak to me. One told me, "Forget the flight," and hung up. Another said, "They know when we talk," then changed his number. Harlan died in a private plane crash in 2009. Clear weather. No distress call. Dr. Mead disappeared from public records. I do not mean she retired. I mean she vanished. Degrees, articles, conference talks, scrubbed down to ghosts. One of the candidates, a kid named Alvarez, ended up in a psychiatric hospital with schizophrenic symptoms. That is what I heard anyway. Schizophrenic symptoms. He was not schizophrenic. He was 29 years old, sharp, funny, engaged to a woman in Denver, and he could calculate re-entry angles in his head after 2 beers. He was not sick until the green light touched him. None of us were. I am 48 now. My hair is going gray. My hands shake when the television is on in another room. Sometimes my phone lights up with no incoming call, and from the speaker comes that same thin static, like something dragging itself across a frequency too old for human machines. Last night I heard applause through the kitchen radio. There was no radio in the kitchen. Then Gene Cernan's voice, buried under lunar hiss and distance, said my name. So I am recording this because I do not know how much longer I will sound like myself. Something is out there in space. I do not know what it is. I do not know if it is alive in any way we understand. I do not know if it is friendly, hostile, curious, sleeping, or waiting. Maybe Gene Cernan saw it too. Maybe others did. Maybe the reports are all filed away under equipment failures, floating rocket pods, sensor errors, pilot fatigue, medical reasons. But I know what I saw, and for whatever reason, NASA does not want anyone to know. They do not want anyone asking questions, especially not this one. When we looked out into space, what looked back? I am an O2 First Lieutenant, stationed at Groom Lake Air Base, Nevada, otherwise known as Area 51. Ask me anything. Throwaway account, obviously. Some of you remember the Art Bell caller from 1997. The panicked guy on the line talking about Area 51, extra-dimensional beings, disasters, government secrecy, all that. Then the broadcast mysteriously went down. I was a kid when that happened. I heard the recording later, same as most of you. Back then I thought it was theater. Now I work behind the fences. So I figured since it's been 29 years, I'd update the world on what has changed. A lot. First thing, they are not called aliens here. Not officially. The word is non-terrestrial biological assets, which sounds like something invented by a committee to make God feel like paperwork. They are biological. They bleed. They breathe, though not like us. Their tissue doesn't heal so much as reorganize. Their nervous systems are distributed through the whole body, not centered in a brain the way ours are. They don't think in words. They model probability, intention, and geometry all at once. That matters because their technology works the same way. Everybody thinks we found a spaceship full of engines and ray guns. We didn't. We found systems. Materials that respond to thought-like input. Computing structures grown instead of manufactured. Memory fields. Semiconductors that made ours look like chipped stone. You ever wonder how it took 200 years to get from rotary phones to cell phones, but only a handful to get from cell phones to smartphones? You ever wonder why machine learning suddenly exploded, like somebody kicked open a door? Groom Lake Research didn't invent every piece. Human beings are clever. We built the ladder. But something here showed us there was a roof to climb on too. Semiconductors, pattern recognition models, neural networks, certain medical imaging systems, advanced prosthetics, stem cell breakthroughs. All of it got nudged. Some got shoved. The medical stuff is what keeps me awake. They can regrow organ tissue. Not theoretically, not someday, now. The Science Squad has done it. Liver, retina, spinal cord bridging, immune reset protocols, even reversal of certain degenerative diseases. But sickness is business. Healthcare is business. I'm not trying to get political. I'm telling you what I have seen written in briefing memos. Economic destabilization risk. Translation: curing everything all at once would crash too many markets. So the miracles get released slowly. One patent here, one therapy there. Enough to look like progress. Never enough to empty the hospitals. Now here's the problem. 29 years of constant experimentation has almost depleted the teat. That's what the old-timers call it. The teat. The source. The recovered materials, biological samples, active systems, dormant systems, partial interfaces, whatever, was pulled out before my time. Most of it is exhausted, dead, burned out, contaminated, reverse engineered into uselessness. Last month, the Science Squad found something they believe is a distress beacon among the effects. Not a radio, not a transmitter. More like a wound in space that knows how to scream. The bigwigs are thinking about activating it. Their logic is simple. See what comes. See what else we can get our hands on. Some of us think that is the dumbest idea in human history. Because if something answers, it may not come curious. It may come ready. Last time, whatever arrived here was broken, stranded, maybe dying. Next time, it might be looking for who cut it open. So go ahead, AMA. I'll answer what I can before this account disappears. I've been a small-town cop for 13 years, but I think my latest case is well above my pay grade. Byron County used to be the kind of place where a police officer could go his whole career without drawing his weapon. Most days, my job was loose cows, drunk fishermen, teenagers tagging the water tower, and the occasional husband locked out after saying something foolish over dinner. I knew every road by the bend in it. I knew every dog by its bark. I knew which porches had coffee waiting, and which doors you didn't knock on after dark unless you wanted an earful. Then the bodies started turning up in the woods. The first was Earl Voss, an outdoorsman who knew the pines better than most men know their own houses. We found him laid out under a stand of black spruce at the edge of town, hands folded neat over his chest, boot still laced. No blood, no struggle. Just a brand on the left side of his neck, 3 crooked lines inside a circle, burned clean into the skin like someone had used a star instead of a tool. His eyes were gone. Not torn out, not hacked. Removed perfectly. The medical examiner said whoever did it had hands like God and a heart like something else. A month later, Mrs. Della Price turned up in the same woods. Folks called her the cat lady, though never to her face. She had 11 cats and remembered everyone's birthday. Same brand. Same impossible precision. Her tongue was missing. The third was Cody Marsh. Town bad boy, petty thief, fist fighter. A man who had spent half his life in my back seat swearing he'd straighten out by Monday. We found him beneath the old fire road. Liver removed. No other mark on him but that symbol. By then, people stopped walking near the tree line. But fear has a way of becoming routine if it lasts long enough. Folks whispered, locked doors, bought guns, prayed louder on Sundays. I investigated because it was my job. Then my brother went missing. Danny was younger by 4 years and better than me in every way that mattered. He coached Little League, fixed engines, called Mom every night after Dad passed. When we found him, I knew before I saw his face. Same woods, same brand. Something had been taken from him too. After that, I stopped sleeping. 3 FBI agents arrived after Danny's funeral. They didn't act like any federal agents I'd ever seen. Agent Vey had eyes too pale to be blue. Agent Serrano never seemed to blink. The third, Agent Mallory, was the only one who spoke to me like I was still a person. Their questions were wrong. Had anyone seen lights moving in sequence above the town? Had multiple residents reported the same dream? Did clocks stop? Did radios hiss? Did children draw doors? I asked them what any of that had to do with murdered people in my woods. Agent Vey only said, "More than you'd like." About a month ago, I went into those woods with Mallory and Serrano. The air was cold and still. Too still. No birds, no insects. Even our footsteps sounded swallowed. Then the humming started. It wasn't loud at first, more like pressure behind the teeth. Then it grew until my skull felt full of hornets. I dropped to my knees. Mallory fell beside me, both hands over her ears. Serrano was shouting something, but I couldn't hear him. The trees bent away from a point in the air. Then reality split open. A black vertical wound appeared between 2 pines. Not a door exactly. More like the idea of a door cut into the world. 3 figures stepped through. Tall, thin, shadowy, but not made of shadow. Their limbs were too long. Their heads tilted like curious birds. They moved without hurry. One took Mallory by the arm. I fired 6 shots. I know I did. I felt the recoil, saw the muzzle flash. The bullets vanished before they reached them. Mallory screamed once as they dragged her into the black rip. Then the woods were normal again. We found her the next morning less than 50 yards from where she'd disappeared. Her neck bore the symbol. Her heart was gone. That was when Vey and Serrano told me the truth, or as much of it as men like them ever tell. They said they handled cases that did not officially exist, that this pattern had been logged for decades, maybe longer, that people had mistaken the visitors for angels, demons, fairies, gods. "They don't come in saucers," Vey said. "That was our mistake. They come through folds, rifts, places where the skin of the world gets thin." I asked how we stopped them. Neither agent answered. Nobody said the word aliens, but we were all thinking it. Serrano kept referring to them as NBs. It stood for non-biologicals, apparently. "Been around for centuries. You'd be shocked and sick if you knew how much they've been involved in." He spoke. Centuries. That alarmed me more than I'd care to admit. It made me realize something. Even though I just found out that aliens were real and they were here with us, that wasn't what was making my blood run cold. It was the difference between us and them. It was the difference between us and bacteria. To them, we were nothing more than odd creatures to be studied and researched. The worst thought I had was that just like the bacteria sitting in the dish in the lab, there was nothing we could do to stop them.